I spent a long time being told I was fine, capable, sensitive, a little anxious, and for a while I believed that, because on the outside it looked like I was coping. I showed up, I had conversations, I did what was expected of me. But what people didn't see was how much work it took to appear okay. Every interaction, something I had to think through. Every environment, something I had to navigate carefully. Every day, effort, constant, invisible effort. There were signs, but they were missed, misunderstood, explained away, or reframed as personality. Too sensitive, too much, or sometimes not enough. It took years to realise I wasn't struggling because of who I am. I was struggling because the world around me didn't understand how I work. When I was finally diagnosed as autistic, it didn't change who I was. It changed how I understood my life. Suddenly things made sense. The exhaustion, the overwhelm, the feeling of being different without knowing why. But with that understanding also came grief, for the years spent masking, for the support I didn't receive, for the parts of myself I learned to hide. This isn't just my story. There were so many of us who were seen as coping while quietly struggling, who were praised for adapting instead of supported for needing, who learned to hide in order to belong. This film is about those stories, about what it means to be diagnosed late, about what was missed, and what we wish you knew.
I'm Rachel. I'm 29. I was diagnosed with ADHD and autism at the age of 27.
So my name is Courtney. I live on a remote cattle station in the Pilbara region of Western Australia, and I am a mum of 3 kids.
Hi, I'm Jodie. I'm 57 years old. I was diagnosed last month on 6th March as autistic and with ADHD.
Hi, my name is Jessica Townley. I prefer Jessie Townley. I am a 27-year-old lived experience intersectional advocate with living and lived experience of disability, neurodiversity, chronic illness.
Okay, so I'm Michael Coles. I'm an ADHDer. Basically, I've had PDD NOS when I was 3, back in 1978, and then I got my ADHD diagnosis last year. So I've got pretty much a full suite of autism, ADHD diagnosis. So I'm pretty much now part of the club.
So I'm Danica, she, her. I am a mum. I also work part-time and I really like ancient history and writing.
I was described a lot as shy, quiet, reserved, polite.
I remember my mum saying I was shy. I know I had a really incredible imagination.
I was kind of sort of perceived as a bit weird, just a little bit odd from the other kids, and I was realizing I was different, but I didn't quite know why.
I think I would have been described as energetic. I was very talkative and often got in trouble for that at school, but I was also a really high achiever and a perfectionist, and I had a really big heart for helping others.
I guess probably shy, awkward, nerdy, funny.
I was very, very uncoordinated as a kid, and I think that still stands. I'm very clumsy and very good at knocking into things myself.
It depended on who you asked, I think. It really depended on who I was around and what environment I was in.
Yeah, I always felt like I didn't quite fit in.
Yeah, like feeling different. You definitely don't know why, but at the same time, you don't know if that's what everybody experiences, and I just haven't worked out the code as such, and others have.
Yes. I think still feeling different, but I know why. But also realizing that the vast majority of people I'm close to are also different makes me feel less different.
I didn't really feel different because I always fit in. And I always fit in because I worked really hard to be like the people around me. So
I've always had that kind of gnawing feeling, pressure, kind of like a cylinder kind of tied to you of different or not normal or disabled. Yeah.
A lot of things that were there were, I really struggled with eye contact as a child. I struggled to make and maintain friendships. I didn't understand social norms.
There was a social awkwardness, the being easily overwhelmed by things, being very... I guess the thing is, like, people think of the diagnosis as if you're functioning or not, and as a negative thing. If you think of it as a strengths-based thing, then would people have been picking up on that? Because I was able to mask and just go along, and it was fine.
I don't think there was anything that really stood out back then as me being autistic. Were there signs? Yes. But it's not until I'd stumbled across other research about autism that I realised I was signs myself. So yeah, I think I did a really good job at fitting in, that I don't think that it would have been picked up at that age.
And I think my mom at the same time, she had an inkling, and she had a reflection that, yes, I probably did present with autistic traits from a very young age. But, we were already dealing with so much with the primary disability of CP. I think, if she were to take both on at the same time, it would have been very overwhelming, not only for me, but for her.
I think for me, a lot of it was hiding parts of me to better suit other people.
It was a survival tactic. It was basically sort of like I was managing stuff, but it was only sort of superficial.
And a personality that wasn't necessarily fake, but a personality that I felt I needed to present to other people to be seen or to be heard or to be validated or to avoid having to be in harmful or unsafe experiences, either physically or like emotionally. It was hard to fully mask when you can't necessarily fully control all aspects of your body.
I don't know what was a mask and what is truly me, to be honest. I have always just been so focused on being liked and being successful that I don't really know what parts of me are me and what parts of me are autistic and what parts of me are constructed to fit in a world that wasn't built for me.
Being very mindful of eye contact, my facial expressions, what I say, how I act around people, really overthinking every aspect of social interactions. Yes, trying not to inconvenience others with things that I'm affected by, and hiding how those things affect me.
It was like not a fake version of you, but it was more sort of like the accepted version of you.
I think it would have been trying to do what other people are doing, and then being frustrated when it just didn't last. And when I did want to be like, did you know that the amount of time between like us now and Cleopatra being alive is less than the time between Cleopatra and the building of the pyramids? And just like things that I find like, that's amazing. And had to kind of rein that in, because when I would go on it would be kind of like that sort of just being kind of an awkward pause.
The biggest impact that masking has is it's so physically and mentally draining. It really does impact that burnout and the ability to cope with everyday life.
You know, realizing that masking caused my autistic burnout in the first place, yeah, it was, it kind of was a light bulb moment for me.
To get through, I drank really heavily, and it put me in a lot of unsafe situations. And I'm very resilient, which I'm grateful for. But if I had have understood, or somebody had have understood me, then I would have avoided a lot of hurt and trauma.
Yeah, it still has for sure. I mean, it just maybe looks a bit differently now, or it feels a bit differently now that I know what masking is. So growing up, I think masking got me into trouble sometimes. I think in the way that I did it in a bit of a harmful way that I didn't intentionally mean it to cause harm, but I would exaggerate things, or I would compulsively lie about certain aspects because I thought that was what people wanted. I thought that's how people wanted to see me, or what they wanted to hear from me, or what I had to do to be able to feel safe and seen and heard. And that got me in trouble. I had unstable friendships. I had toxic friendships. I presented unhelpful ways of coping.
I think half the problem was, basically sort of trying to survive, just trying to live a normal life and all that type of thing, and just trying to sort of survive in society that just doesn't accept us for who we really are.
The unmasking, like you're living a whole life being this actor. It's who am I? Who is the person underneath? You are just being what everybody else wants you to be, because that's what you're told you have to do. And you take that mask off, or you say, right, you're not going to be this character anymore. You need to be you. And you go, who am
I think when you've been trying to fit in for decades, that it almost, you become that person. Hindsight is such a powerful thing, but I always wonder who I would be had I have known and had those supports in place early.
Getting my autism diagnosis 6 months later, everything finally made sense for the first time in my life. That, it just explained how I experience the world and how my brain works, and it just gave me so much clarity.
Now I realize that basically I'm autistic and now ADHD. It's just basically a part of who I am.
It was a punch in the gut. I spent days in bed. I read the report almost feeling like it was written about somebody else. I felt empathy for my younger self and all of the things that I went through. And I really did want to show up for myself with grace and kindness. I felt fear and guilt about what that meant for my kids. I felt relieved and validated, which is something that doesn't happen for me.
I'm a lot less self-critical. There's less shame.
I now sort of know like a little bit, make more sense of why I shut down and stuff like that in times of stress.
Yeah, every time I start to feel myself heading towards burnout, I try and pull back. And I think that's probably the most useful thing about being diagnosed, is being able to recognize burnout and the things that add to that.
I've got the reports. This is why. And this is why I sort of like, my sort of brain works in this particular type of way. And this is why I experience burnout. And this is why I experience shutdowns and meltdowns sometimes.
It allowed me to be a lot kinder to myself. And that was the biggest thing. Like, for the first time in my life, I could just kind of go, okay, like, I'm not broken. I I'm wired differently, and that's okay, and have that, self-compassion.
I don't feel like a diagnosis has changed who I am at my core at all. I'm still me. I just am able to recognize the struggles that I have and why I have them, which also kind of gives me permission to seek help for those things without guilt. But I just wish that I could seek help from the people in my immediate circle, from friends and family members. I just wish that they had the knowledge needed to understand me better.
The biggest thing is just, when you meet one autistic person, you've met just one autistic person. We're all different. We all present differently. With a lot of us, there's a significant amount of masking that happens daily. So we might not look autistic, but that doesn't mean that our experiences aren't, valid or there.
Being neurodivergent, such as autistic or ADHD, our brains are wired differently. There's actual proof of that. It's not a choice for us. It's how we live.
We don't want people to sort of hide their identity again, because it's sort of like there's been so many sort of steps and basically acceptance and all that type of thing that's been gathering steam over the years and all that type of thing. We just don't want that to be lost.
It's important for people to challenge their own stereotypes on what an autistic person looks like. It's hard enough living as an autistic person in a world that doesn't, it isn't made for us, without the judgments or internalized stereotypes or ableism that comes with it. So I think just understanding our experiences and listening without judgment is really important.
Everybody who needs it, I think accommodations is vital to be able to sort of do their work well. And I think sort of, basically the environment is critical for an autistic people to succeed.
I would want them to know that there are so many brilliant things that can come with neurodiversity, that it is a lot of all this disabilities is about how people can function in the world as it is, and that is not built for a lot of people who are neurodivergent. It's so strong, like the way that people who are neurodivergent can advocate because they just really, really care about things and empathize about things is just this amazing power. Workplaces, for example, could be more flexible in the way that they support people.
I want people to know that it's not my job to educate them about autism, that autism comes in many shapes, many forms, and that we all experience the world differently, that some people are really good at masking and some people have really high communication needs. But myself, I have difficulty with a lot of other things, that I'm not just being difficult when I need to have things a certain way. I wish that people made an effort to understand what autism looks like in women, specifically those who are late diagnosed and went a lifetime without a diagnosis. I would love it if people approach me with curiosity and understanding. And if they made an effort to, if they made an effort to support me rather than be skeptical.
Recognize and always practice or support or advocate with the idea of spectrum in mind. The spectrum of that person themselves. So their contextual factors, their culture, their physical ability, their accessible needs, their sexuality, their gender, their previous medical history, their current life quality. and consider all of that, and then not only within the person, but the community and the systems and the policies that drive their participation within outside of themselves as well.
Of appreciating the fact that I'm autistic, and it's more a identity of who I am rather than sort of like, it's more something to be fixed.
For many of us, understanding didn't come early. It came after years of trying to fit, trying to cope, trying to be who we thought we needed to be. A late diagnosis doesn't just give you answers. It asks you to rethink your life, and sometimes to grieve what was missed. But it can also bring something else. Understanding, self-compassion, the possibility of being yourself without apology. Because the problem was never who we are. It was that the world around us didn't understand how we work. When we listen and support people in the ways they need, things begin to change. And fewer people have to hide in order to belong. This is what we wish you knew.